Welcome back. A new survey showing a majority of Canadians think that boycotting American-made goods or travel to the U.S. is helpful.
This is the U.S. departures area of Montreal's Trudeau Airport, which is particularly quiet at the height of summer. And one of the most visible signs Canadians are staying away.
You don't have a Canadian bucket list? Now is the time to create that bucket list.
The Canada Strong Pass aims to keep travel here instead of across the border.
Our government is making it easier for families to choose Canada as they make their summer plans.
With Canada Day weekend upon us, the capital is bustling with energy and tourists, many people taking advantage of the new Canada Strong Pass.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. Something unusual just happened in Washington, and it's shaking one of the world's closest friendships. During a press briefing at the White House on October 7, 2025, Donald Trump casually said that Canada could avoid tariffs if it became America's 51st state. It sounded like a joke, but for millions of Canadians, it wasn't funny at all. Within hours, the remark spread like wildfire across social media, reopening an old wound about independence and national pride. The hashtag number 51st state exploded to over 4.8 million mentions in just 2 days. Not just from critics or politicians, but from ordinary Canadians asking a simple question. Does Washington still see Canada as a partner or just an extension of itself? In Ottawa, the reaction was swift but measured. Former Ambassador Frank McKenna warned that U.S.-Canada relations were at their lowest point in decades. Even so, Prime Minister Mark Carney chose silence. No fiery speeches, no harsh retaliation, just a calm pause that left analysts wondering what was coming next. Because sometimes the quietest response can carry the loudest message. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that like button. A simple tap helps push this video to more people who need to see it. And that silence from Ottawa? It wasn't hesitation, it was strategy. Just days after Trump's remark went viral, Canada quietly unveiled something that spoke louder than any press conference: the Canada Strong Pass. No threats, no slogans, just a simple card that gave Canadians free access to national parks, museums, and heritage sites. On the surface, it looked like a tourism initiative, but underneath it carried a powerful message about unity and self-reliance. Running from December 12, 2025 to January 15, 2026 and extended through the summer of 2026, the program encouraged citizens to explore Canada, literally turning domestic travel into a statement of national pride. Prime Minister Mark Carney described it as a way for Canadians to celebrate themselves when others challenge their sovereignty. Tourism Minister Rechi Valdez went further, calling it the perfect opportunity, at a time when many Canadians were already avoiding trips south due to new U.S. tariffs. Analysts saw it as a masterclass in subtle diplomacy, a soft but sharp counterstrike that redirected frustration into economic strength. Instead of meeting words with anger, Canada chose to meet them with confidence and creativity. Still with us? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. The impact of the Canada Strong Pass rippled far beyond parks and museums. It awakened something deeper. What began as a government initiative soon turned into a collective movement, driven not by politics, but by pride. Across the country, Canadians started making quiet yet deliberate choices. Grocery chains like Sobeys Inc. began phasing out U.S. imports, opting instead for local and European suppliers. On social media, hashtags like #BuyCanadianFirst and #SkipTheSouth dominated timelines, reaching tens of millions of views and turning shopping carts into statements of identity. According to Statistics Canada, cross-border travel to the United States dropped 23% in the first 7 months of 2025, a decline not caused by new laws or official boycotts, but by sentiment. Economists began calling it a form of intentional economics, when public emotion transforms into measurable market behavior. Former Ambassador Frank McKenna described it best. This isn't a protest in the streets, it's a rebellion with wallets. And for once, that quiet rebellion seemed to be working. And soon, that quiet rebellion began to cross the border. From Florida's beaches to California's coast, the absence of Canadian tourists became impossible to ignore. Hotels sat half-empty, rental cars gathered dust, and local businesses, from diners to theme parks, started feeling the chill of an economic winter. According to the Washington Post, April 2025, nearly 4 million fewer Canadians visited the United States that year, costing the U.S. tourism industry an estimated $4.3 billion in lost revenue. At Fort Lauderdale Airport, arrivals from Canada dropped by 20%, while Orlando saw hotel bookings plunge 35%. In Vancouver, travel agencies reported a 90% collapse in U.S.-bound tour bookings compared to the previous year. The numbers painted a clear picture. This wasn't just a dip in tourism. States like Florida, Arizona, and California began lobbying the White House to ease tensions, warning that strained relations with Canada were bleeding local economies dry. As CNN put it, this was the quietest, yet most devastating tourism crisis America has faced in a decade. The message from Canadians was subtle but unmistakable. They didn't need to shout to be heard. Their absence spoke volumes. But while the U.S. struggled to fill empty hotels, Canada was quietly turning absence into opportunity. The Canada Strong Pass proved to be far more than a welfare-style travel perk. It became a case study in strategic adaptation. By making domestic exploration both accessible and symbolic, Ottawa effectively redirected national sentiment into economic momentum. Within weeks of its launch, Parks Canada reported a 10% rise in visitors, museums saw attendance climb 15%, and VA Rail recorded over 50,000 bookings made directly through the pass. More than 240,000 tourism-related businesses, from local inns to restaurants and transport providers, benefited, helping sustain roughly 2 million jobs nationwide. The campaign slogan, "See Canada, Be Canada," spread across social media and television, transforming leisure travel into a civic expression of solidarity. Provinces like Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia recorded their highest levels of domestic tourism growth in 5 years. Economists estimate that CSP successfully redirected 3 to 4 billion Canadian dollars of spending that would normally flow south, keeping it circulating within the national economy. What began as a quiet show of pride had evolved into a deliberate act of economic resilience. A reminder that in a globalized world, even tourism can become a tool of strategy. By this point, it had become clear that something far bigger than tourism was unfolding. What started as a quiet response to a controversial remark had turned into a cultural and economic shift, one that was beginning to redefine how Canadians saw themselves and their place in the world. The Canada Strong Pass may have been designed to boost domestic travel, but its impact went far deeper, awakening a conversation about sovereignty that extended into wallets, workplaces, and even classrooms. Across the country, daily habits began to reflect a quieter kind of patriotism. A national survey conducted in the third quarter of 2025 revealed that 78% of Canadians now preferred to buy products labeled Made in Canada. Domestic brands reported average sales growth of 12 to 15% since the program's launch, one of the most significant shifts in consumer behavior since the early 2000s. For many, buying local was no longer just about supporting jobs. It was about reinforcing a sense of shared identity at a time when external pressures seemed to test it. Small businesses, online creators, and local influencers became unexpected ambassadors of this new mindset. Campaigns like Support Local, Protect Canada, and Proudly Canadian began trending across platforms, transforming what once felt like a niche movement into a mainstream narrative of economic solidarity. Economists and sociologists started describing it as a form of consumer sovereignty, a phenomenon where citizens assert national pride not through political activism or legislation, but through everyday market choices, and the ripple effects went well beyond retail. The same mindset began shaping conversations in sectors like technology, education, and sustainable manufacturing. Startups promoting homegrown innovation attracted new attention, while universities began highlighting Canadian-made research and technology exports. The idea of economic independence was evolving, no longer just a policy goal, but a shared cultural aspiration. In many ways, what began as an emotional reaction to a passing remark from Washington was transforming into something far more enduring, a collective redefinition of what it means to be Canadian in a world where economic choices are as symbolic as political ones. As Washington turned a joke into a diplomatic headache, Ottawa quietly turned it into an opportunity, one that tested not just policy, but identity. In an era where tourism, consumer behavior, and trade all intertwine with questions of pride, Canada's response offered a glimpse of something new, a model of restraint that still carried power. The US-Canada relationship now stands in what analysts call a period of mutual dependence with eroding trust. Each side still needs the other, yet both are learning how fragile that balance can be. Within this tension, the Canada Strong Pass has become more than a travel card. It's a prototype for a broader idea of economic self-reliance, one that could extend into education, culture, and even energy. European observers have compared Canada's approach to the EU's strategy of soft autonomy, where quiet independence replaces confrontation. And while Donald Trump continues to frame trade in terms of fairness and winning, Canada has responded in its own language, that of calm, deliberate action backed by tangible results. So perhaps the real question isn't about a single comment in Washington, but about what it revealed. Was this just a fleeting wave of emotion, or the beginning of a more confident, self-assured Canada that no longer waits for validation from its southern neighbor? Thanks for sticking around. If you found this valuable, like and subscribe to support more content like this.